Next one comes to us from Julio. It's about sort of a liability question. And he's asking if, he thinks there'll ever come a time where firearms instructors get kind of roped into this movement to try to attach liability for crimes committed with firearms by third parties. You obviously see laws being passed in states to go after gun sellers and gun businesses. And then very recently, you obviously had the landmark Crumbly case verdict where the parents of a school shooter were found criminally liable for the child's act at that school. And he's basically
the mother was. The mother,
yeah. The father is still having his trial, yeah. And he's asking, do we foresee a time where firearms instructors will get roped into all of that?
Yeah, and then you also had with the Armor on the Rust set, the Alec Baldwin movie where Alec Baldwin accidentally shot that woman during production. She was found liable for that death as well. And yeah, I mean, I think out of all those things, I think the Crumbly case makes the most interesting thought experiments in this front, because that was really a landmark thing where the parents, especially the mother, it seems like, were not really directly involved she wasn't involved in the purchase of the gun. She didn't know about his plans ahead of time. She didn't give him access to the firearm to take with him to the school or anything like that. There were major warning signs that got ignored by her and the father and the school. It seems like, for instance, the morning of the shooting, the meeting that they had, nobody seemed to take that very seriously, or at least certainly not anywhere near seriously enough. And 4 people were killed as a result of that. But it's still something where you wouldn't, hasn't traditionally been attached to a criminal liability, right? The sort of negligence leading to manslaughter. And so, could that expand to other people and in other facets of life and firearms training, firearms trainers? I kind of doubt it at this point. Certainly there's risk involved with being a firearms trainer, that somebody you train, and look, I'm a certified firearms instructor. And if you give somebody very bad advice and they follow through on that advice, maybe you could become liable in some sense for that. I would think you'd probably end up more in the civil liability suit than criminal liability. But I guess it kind of depends on what you tell the person and what they do. But just having trained somebody responsibly in going by the norms, or teaching them, to the T out of the book, like the NRA basic pistol course or something, is unlikely, I think, to give you any level of liability at this point. You probably have to see a change in laws. But I do think the Crumbly case will embolden prosecutors to try and make more cases like that. I just think they're less likely to go after firearms instructors outside of some sort of really extenuating circumstance where there was some sort of incredibly egregious thing that the instructor said or did that can directly be connected to the whatever criminal act happens. But I just don't see like a general liability coming there. You'd be more concerned, I think, about like if you give bad offhanded legal advice to somebody during a class that you're teaching and they follow through on that, you might be in legal trouble then, but more for like a civil liability. And even then, I haven't heard of a lot of cases like that. I'm sure there must be some where people sued their firearms instructors based on things they told them. But so yeah, I mean, one thing is like, don't do stupid things. Don't say dumb. Don't give out really terrible advice on like self-defense law, especially if you don't know a lot about it. That would be my major advice. But I wouldn't see something like the Crumbly situation coming down the path for firearms instructors anytime soon. Certainly not just for anyone who's a responsible instructor, at the very least. If we're just talking about generalized, we're going to go after anybody who teaches a class where a student ends up doing something criminal after the fact, even if the instructor didn't have anything to do with it. I don't see anything like that coming anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good point. And it's worth noting that I haven't seen any sort of concerted effort to even try to attach stuff to firearms instructors the way you see it for businesses or sometimes for parents.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen a movement to push for it. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's around the corner.
There is, because I will say, like you mentioned there is the attempt to attach criminal liability or civil liability, but for the criminal acts of third parties to gun businesses, gun makers, and dealers. We haven't seen that expanded to gun trainers, and I wouldn't expect that to happen. That is maybe the other avenue that you might see this happen through, but I mean, it just hasn't been something that they've added. It's not impossible that it could happen, but it's not something I would expect in the near future.